When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. I've got Parker Johnson back here again from Valley Transportation, and he's nice to come on and talk about what's happening in the world of trucking. So, Parker, how you doing, bud?
Good, and yourself, Casey?
Not too bad, man. It's been a little bit of a crazy fall. We've had some cold weather come through, and now we've got some warm, what we call a typical fall temperature, I guess, right now. But I don't know what's it like up in your neck of the woods right now?
Yeah, it's been nice here this week. Last week, we had days that dipped down into the teens overnight and stuff like that. And we did have a little bit of snow one morning. The wife didn't want to drive to work, so she rode with me that day, and I didn't blame her. It was kind of a sticky situation out there in spots.
Yeah, we had a little bit of that
wasn't
too.
expecting it. It's a little early for that snow word, and there's still guys out here that have crops and stuff, and luckily this week it's letting people get back into the field again and get to it. Yeah,
we had a little bit of snow come through here as well. Just it was a heavy wet snow. Usually this time of the year when it's that cold, it was pretty cold when it snowed. You just get that really dry, fluffy stuff. Blows away. Use your leaf blower to clear off your driveway type of deal. But this was a heavier wet snow, so it was a little bit different than normal. But a lot of stuff going on right now, man. You take a look what's happening. We've got, you brought up a couple pretty good points here that we're going to cover today, but let's start with this one first. So now here we are in tillage season. We're going to see tillage being moved around between now and spring, depending on field work and when you start that and those kind of things. Tillage is always the toughest thing to move around because you never know exactly what the regulations are from one state to another. And if you're moving a piece of equipment across multiple states, it can get pretty expensive. And so I guess, what are some rules of thumb you use, Parker, when you're looking at tillage equipment and moving it around?
The way tillage equipment is anymore, more often than not, you can't get it down to that magic number of 12 feet wide to avoid the escorts. Mm-hmm. But if you can keep it around that 14, you're going to have escorts in certain states, but it makes a big difference compared to 15, 16, 17 wide. Yeah. In some states like Minnesota, I can't remember if it's like 4 or 15.6 wide. Depending on your route, you could potentially get state police escorts, which that gets way more than just your run-of-the-mill, escort driver, driving the company pickup.
Right. Yeah.
Well, tillage equipment, if you need it hauled, I can help you, but it's going to have to be tore down. You get these 60-foot field cultivators. I think they take 2 loads when they get shipped from the factory, probably. Yeah. But it's about the only way to haul them. But unless you have a semi with a pintle hitch on or something like that, and you can pull it yourself, then you need nothing. Just turn your flashing lights on and go.
Right.
Obviously trying to be as safe as possible, but you don't need any permits, any escorts, nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too about hauling equipment like that, tillage equipment like that, is that not only just it's the width, but it's also the height associated with that. Because some of these bridges, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos and Twitter feeds with something getting ran through a bridge somewhere, and that's a whole level of trouble there when something like that happens.
Right, exactly. Whatever the height is on the ground, add 2 feet to it, because by the time you get it on a trailer, it's 2 feet taller.
Yeah. Yep.
It's,
So it's a whole level of stuff at that point.
right. It's difficult. I mean, there's been times where it's easier to unfold the field cultivator, whatever it is, set it on the trailer sideways, take the hitch off and the rolling baskets on the back, and just stack it. And that's your best bet. But I mean, it takes a lot of time, and you need a forklift on each side to lift it up and back the trailer underneath it. And unless it's going from a dealer to a dealer, a lot of the times, the end user might not be able to come or help you out enough to get it offloaded.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always a thing too. When you look at some of these tillage pieces that show up on some of these auctions, unless you're just getting a smoking deal, it's really expensive to move a piece
they
of
stay local.
Yeah. It's for any distance, even a few hundred miles, it's ridiculously expensive, So
yeah, because you can't hook it up to the 1-ton pickup. I mean, that'd be a heck of a tow for it.
Yeah, yeah. You really start putting some of that stuff in a big situation there. So, but yeah, that's the one thing I was when we list something on a site and you go out there and you look at it and you're wanting to move forward with it, and next thing you know, you've got this. It's going to cost you 15% of the value of the machine to move it across wherever you want it to go. It gets hard. So take that into consideration when you look at some of these tillage pieces. I mean, make sure that you were talking to a guy like Park or something like that before you go out and take a look at what you're doing, because it's really expensive to move that.
Be a costly deal for you.
Yeah.
And the worst part is a lot of times you don't know what the dimensions are going to be until you get it completely tore down. I mean, you have to look at it and be like, all right, let's start measuring here and here. I think it'll be that wide, but you forgot that back disc gang or something like that. It's a little bit wider than the frame.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, you brought up another good point too. I think that's worth talking about. It kind of goes into this situation here that we're going down. Is you've talked about a couple times now that we've done this about some brokerage stuff and brokerage companies and what that looks like. And you're starting to see, like you said, you read some stuff somewhere where you started to see some of these brokerage companies just went out of business just like overnight, basically, and left some of these trucks out there with freight that need to be paid for that they're not even in business anymore to pay for when they get there. So I guess talk a little bit about that what you're seeing there kind of start to develop.
Right. Yeah. Like I've said it so many times, know who's hauling your equipment and who you're getting quotes from and stuff like that. And, I've read a few different articles where some of these brokerage companies, I mean, they don't have any semis. They just have guys sitting behind a computer, moving freight on other companies, which we have a brokerage department as well, but we're an asset-based company. First off, we have the trucks and trailers. That's kind of our backup plan for if we don't have a plan for your load. But these other guys, they're banking on all these other carriers to haul their stuff. Well, a couple of them, overnight, close the doors, everybody's laid off, fired, whatever. And you got all these trucks carrying equipment, or whether it's, ag construction, it might be van trailer stuff, you don't know. And these guys are getting stuck with the load. They deliver it and then they don't get paid for it because the company is bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yep.
And we've ran into that now a couple times with our company too, is the brokers will be calling us to move something while we do a background check on it. We're like, no, red flags everywhere. Like, ain't touching it. You don't want to be the guy getting stuck, doing somebody else's stuff for free.
Yeah, for sure. And then you start looking at some of these drivers that are just taking these jobs, and that could very well also bankrupt them as well because of the cost that came with them. I mean, you think that one load's not a big deal, but you think about fuel and insurance and the various other costs that are associated with that operation. Those add up pretty quick when you start looking at that.
And in one of the articles, they kind of had a segment on one carrier. It was just a one-man show. He did a bunch of stuff for this broker. Well, he might get paid at 30 days. Well, he might have done 4 or 5 loads with them in that 30 days. And they owed him a pile of money. Well, it bankrupted him too. I mean, he had to sell his truck and trailer. Like, he couldn't afford to pay his bills anymore.
Right.
All the money that he was owed, and he wasn't going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bad deal. The carriers out there need to be paying attention to who they're taking loads from as well.
Right. It kind of goes back to the little adage, you don't always get the best deal because it's the cheapest deal.
Right.
You got to really pay attention to what you're talking about. And so I know we've talked about this a million times on here, but I mean, I think it's worth reiterating. Parker, you just talked about a little bit ago. You do some background stuff on some of these carriers that call, or some of these brokerage companies that call you and want to work with you guys. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you talk to these companies?
It's I don't run the reports, but I mean, it's basically it's a background check. It has their credit, their days to pay, all that different stuff, how much business they actually do. It's anything that, a bank might be looking at, if we were trying to take out a loan, basically.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's doing is we're giving them a loan. They're paying us back at 30 days. We're just making sure that they got the credit to get us paid.
Yeah. So is there an easy place for folks to go look that kind of stuff up?
I don't know that. I'd have to dig into that a little bit more. I think we have to pay for a service.
Sure.
I think there's a company that we use. I mean, you can Google a company's information and they give you a little bit of background on them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it has like their financials and stuff on there or anything like that.
Sure.
But
yeah.
It might tell you like, how many trucks they have. I mean, if you look up a brokerage company, obviously it's probably going to say 0. But, that'd be a good way to start.
Yep. And there's enough chatter out there on the internet too when someone gets hosed that it always surfaces somewhere about somebody.
I seen a TikTok video the other day. A van trailer pulled into, I can't remember the name of the brokerage company. It's a big one though. And he pulled in and had on the side of his van trailer, pay me the $8,000 that you owe me, and just parked right in their fucking parking lot. No joke. Exactly. All the people, all the employees are sitting there videotaping him out their windows,
Right.
And there he is, just driving around their parking lot.
It's one way to do it. Yeah.
Pay me my $8,000.
Yeah. That's one way to do it. Get enough attention drawn to you like that. You sooner or later, the old
right.
adage.
It's a huge brokerage company too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
plenty. Yeah. Well, that's plenty of things to pay attention to. So again, when you're picking someone to work with, man, make sure they're reputable. Make sure they're someone like a Valley Transportation that can absolutely show you what to do. Because how many trucks do you guys have?
Around that 180, 190 range, something like that.
Yes, when you're running that many trucks, you're going to have that's a reputable place to take a look at. So make sure you reach out to Parker when you start looking at your stuff. What's going on there? Okay. Yeah. All right, man. So we are fastly approaching that peak holiday season here. We got Thanksgiving just a couple weeks down the road here.
You got your Christmas tree up yet?
No, but I know where you can buy one. They sure have them for sale.
My buddy's girlfriend put on her Snapchat the other day. Putting hers up. I think it's November 1st. I was like,
yeah,
why?
It's so
or
early.
I'm not gonna get Scrooge or something like that, but
yeah,
I can get a little longer.
It gets earlier and earlier every year. I mean, it was there was Christmas decorations next to the Halloween candy at the place here in town. So I was like, man, this is ridiculous. This is a little bit ridiculous. But we're getting close to that time frame, and not only is it people want time off to spend with family, but it's also a lot of states do a lot of different stuff when it comes to with regulations, especially during these time frames. And there's certain days, usually it's the day before and the day after a holiday that you can't haul any kind of wide loads and those kind of things. But I guess, Parker, what are some of the best practices that you see during this time frame to make sure that you get your stuff from point A to point B?
Yeah, I mean, just give us as much notice as possible, and then just be prepared. Which, I mean, everybody is. They understand the holidays. Slow things down. Drivers want to be home. Then just the travel restrictions with most of the states. On Thanksgiving, there's usually majority of the states there's no travel. Whether it's all day the day before or at afternoon that day, and Friday, Black Friday, they might be. There's so much travel around. They want to keep the roadways as safe as possible. And the same with Christmas. It gets tough around Christmas. I can't remember what day it is this year. I don't know if is it on a Sunday or a Monday? I can't remember.
I think it's a Sunday. I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's definitely
so most of it'll probably be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, no travel. Tuesday maybe. We'll find that out when the time gets closer. But it's just something to think about if you got something coming your way, in the future.
Yeah, it's on a Monday this year. Monday is
Monday.
Yeah. So they'll have Sunday. Obviously, they'll shut that down, but they'll take another day of the week usually when it's on a weekend like that to make sure that they can do that. So again, it's all about planning and making sure you know what you got where you need it.
Yeah, and then like you said, we just had some bad weather surprisingly, and that's going to be coming before too long again as well, and that's another curveball we have to throw into it here and there. Out west, you get some of them states with higher elevation. Oh, they're already getting snow.
Yeah,
we get them passes on some of the mountains that are going to be shut down, and so that definitely plays into what we got coming up too. Making sure we take the right route if we're going to California, whether it's worth going the north route or going south and staying away from that mess.
Yeah.
So we'll be dealing with that until springtime.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you'll start looking at it from a perspective of, do you have, is that juice worth the squeeze when you're looking at, are you adding a bunch of different miles to do that, to make that happen? So it's going to be, what's that look like? What's your time frame look like? And I guess this is one of those times of the year where, planning way ahead of what you think you're going to need when you're going to need it, it's going to pay off for you in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little about
cool stuff coming up.
Yeah. No kidding. Right. No kidding. All right. Let's talk a little bit of stuff on the fuel front. As you guys look around right now from the diesel fuel perspective, what are you seeing out there right now? And are you feeling like, our prices coming back in a better shape than they've been maybe in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely leveled off, and I think maybe coming down a little bit. I kind of pay attention to one of our higher up guys sends an email out every week, like here's the national fuel average, and it stayed pretty flat for a while. But gas at the pump, I've noticed is coming down a little bit around here, so that's nice. Hopefully, diesel follows, and the fuel prices definitely affect the price of hauling equipment, and it's gotten so competitive lately, with the last month was a good month. We moved a lot of freight, but before that, we were having to bid really competitively to get this freight and stuff like that to keep our trucks rolling. And there was quite a shortage of freight there for a little while, and you got an abundance of trucks. So, So I mean, the prices are definitely better than what they were.
That's good. The other thing too, I've kind of been worried about here of late is just that's kind of fixing this price that we're seeing, price per mile thing is the insurance costs that we're seeing, just because of especially on the equipment side, how expensive some of the stuff is that you're hauling. Well, most of the stuff is that you're hauling around. I go, so as you're looking at those insurance kind of rates and those kind of things, and the amount of insurance you got to carry now compared to maybe what you had to carry 3 years ago, how's that playing into this factor?
I don't know if it really affects it doesn't really affect the price on, per mile, hauling down the road, but obviously it's in the back of our mind all the time. Like, we had a meeting about it not that long ago. It was just a standard meeting to tell everybody, like, here's how much it's costing a truck to run down the road. You figure in, your fuel, your driver pay, you kind of figure in, wear and tear on the vehicles, but it's so small, tires. But obviously you got them fixed costs like insurance due every month, So it doesn't really affect the price of hauling equipment, but it's obviously affecting or for the end user anyway, but it affects us, like I said, monthly. So, I mean, that price that payment's just always there.
Yep. Yeah, that's always just kind of a fixed cost, and it just kind of built there, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely higher than it has been, but obviously equipment is way higher than it has been. I mean, even the past couple of years, used equipment is worth way more than what it was a few years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
We used to have $50,000 $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 tractors. Now they're worth $120,000.
Yeah,
maybe they're starting to come down, but you could have bought a $70,000, 8,000 series. Well, now it's 110, 120.
Yeah, and I think it's we're starting to see some of that settling down, kind of what we saw blow up there a little bit ago. But I guess this is something I've kind of talked about a little bit and wrote a few articles about. But when I look at the economy, I don't see the factors that we see in front of us now. That the economy is quote unquote bad. I see it as there's this kind of this premium that got put on everything in 21, 22, and even in the first part of 23. It's starting to come off, and it's just kind of shocking the system. The bubbles got a pinprick in it, and it's slowly letting some air out. Hopefully, it doesn't just pop. But as you're looking at what's going on there, what are you feeling right now when you see the freight that you guys we're seeing? Are you feel like freight is backed off, leveled out, picked up? I mean, where do you from on the equipment side? Like, where do you see that playing in there?
I mean, this year compared to last year, definitely down. I mean, the numbers, you look at our computer every single day, and there used to be 400 loads in the computer every single day. I mean, some would leave, more would come in. I mean, it just kept on and on.
Right.
The numbers are down quite a bit this year, but I'd have to look to see if our load count compared to last year is much lower. But we've been picking things up so fast that it doesn't have time for that load list to just continue to grow.
Yeah.
So the price per mile is definitely down. You know, the fuel isn't as high. The availability for trucks is more. I mean, it's easier to find trucks.
Right.
Last year when fuel was super high, you couldn't find a truck, so you had to price stuff as high as you could to, you know, make it more desirable for a driver to haul it compared to something different.
Right.
So I don't know. Last month was a lot better than the previous 2 months for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's and that's kind of what I feel a little bit too. I don't know that it's contracting to the point where, hey, you know, these things are happening. I think just some of this, it's normalizing. I think it's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You know, things aren't going crazy. You don't have all this, you know, thing out there. And man, you know, interest rates are driving a lot of that too, you know, where we see happening. So, you know, as I look at it, I'm anticipating, you know, 23 to go out on a good note. 24, in my opinion, is going to be a good year by all means, by every measure that's there. What I think is going to be the big issue with that is it going to be as good as the previous 3 years? No, I don't think so. But it's still going to be a good year. And I think that where we're going to see some real static is that I really anticipate seeing, you know, 20 to 35% reduction in the value of used equipment just because of, again, some of these premiums that we've seen put on there, some of this normalizing the price is going to start taking place. So,
and I think there's a lot of equipment on the lots, isn't there? It seems like
it's starting to build back up. Used equipment's still building, across the board. So it's not changing. You know,
I think auction guys are staying busy. I think they got a lot of sales coming up.
Yep. Yeah, the auction thing's it's a weird animal right now, man. If you take a look what's driving some of the auction marketplace, it's not necessarily. I mean, obviously, the equipment side of it, just the amount of equipment out there is doing that. But a lot of these guys, you take a look at what they're doing. I've talked to a lot of auctioneers where a lot of the stuff that's being auctioned right now that they see happening in some of their sales they're booking is there might be, you know, just say for example, there's 12 tractors on the auction. 3 or 4 of those may have not even made it to the dealership. They're just taking them straight to the auction.
Right.
And that's because, you know, the interest holding costs, those kind of things that are associated with those. So it'll be 24 is going to be interesting what happens. You know, if the Fed comes out and says, hey, you know what, we interest rates are too high now, and we're going to start backing off, you know, somewhere, you know, end of first or second quarter or something like that, you could see all of a sudden things go from being, you know, 7.5% interest to, you know, they might go down to the 6.5 or 6% interest rates or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would spur a lot of people to start thinking about maybe, man, I'm going to go back in and trade my 7.5% off for 6.5%.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's I mean, on a $700,000-$800,000 combine, that 1% is big.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a difference in what you're looking at. And I think it wouldn't take much. I mean, even if it got down to like, I couldn't imagine going from 7.5% interest down to 5 or 5.5%.
Right.
And what that would look like. That would be a huge game changer. So we might see that in 24. I don't know if it'll be that dramatic, but
I mean, some of the big guys, I think obviously they trade equipment no matter what. That's just what they do. But, you know, like for the smaller guy, like, you know, last year my dad was buying some different stuff, and this year I don't think he's even thought about, you know, trying to upgrade anything, you know, that operating note and just interest in general on any equipment is just, it's hard. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah. Well, you've seen so many guys that had 2.5 or 3% interest on the note that they had, and they're going to trade that in for 7.5. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just it's just, there's a lot of moving parts there. And kind of back to your point is, like, you don't really need it. You don't really need to upgrade it. A lot of guys are just saying, I'm just going to fix it. You know, I'll pay the interest on my operating line, and we'll just go from there. So.
Retirement auctions, I've noticed have kind of been picking up around here. I think more than I've seen in the past. I just went on an auction not just down the road from us. They got some auctions coming up, and I think there's like 2 or 3 retirement auctions here yet this year.
Yeah, that's another thing too that I'm surprised there hasn't been more of. There was quite a bit of that during COVID. Obviously, there was estate sales and auction sales and those kind of things. But I really thought when things normalized back out, we started seeing some opportunity for guys. I kind of got what I was going to get and made my amount of money that I needed to make and start doing that. There'd be more of that, but you're starting to see that now. I think more than more where you've got the 65-year-old, 70-year-old, whatever, and they're kind of weighing what's going on around them, and no one's coming back. They're kind of looking at that from a perspective of, man, I think this is probably my best time to get out, and I think you're seeing that.
You're probably right there. It probably is a good time to get out if that's what you're thinking. But the problem is, I think there's kids that want to come back and do it, but they ain't got the capital to just dive right in.
Yep.
It's hard to. I mean, it's hard for myself just to kind of wean myself into it. And especially with prices like this year, that changed a lot, and the bushels just weren't there and stuff like that. It was a little bit of a harder year than I was expecting it to be, but yeah, I mean it's hard to try and get in, on the ground floor and go balls to the walls. You just can't.
Yeah. Yep. It does. It's a very capital intense business, and it takes a lot to make it work, and those operations that are in a good position to move in and buy some stuff, you're going to see. So I think you'll see an opportunity where there's a more of a multi-generational boom. I think when you start looking at some of these operations where there's the guy that's got the 2,000 acres or the 3,000 acres, right. That But I think the other side of that too is I watch this happen quite a bit around where I'm at. More guys are not interested in selling their land as much as they are cash renting it, and I think you're starting to see some more of that because the way they look at it, it's a revenue stream. I can pay the taxes on it and take a
as long as you don't owe a lot of money on it. I think you can make that work. Just by renting it out. But depending on what your payments are on that property, I mean, if your payments are $400 or $500 and you have to make $400 or $500 an acre on rent, it's hard to find somebody to want to pay that.
Yeah. That was there's I had a podcast not too long ago with some folks on here that were talking about they started doing that, and it was kind of showing like what's the fair value of rent right now, what's that look like, and how is that being calculated and what that is. And oddly enough, they said that it wasn't necessarily the highest bidder that was winning every time. 9 times out of 10, that wasn't the person. It was the guy down the street or down the road that they knew him growing up or whatever, and they wanted him to have that, and they
instead of some big corporate, a cooperative or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
So start to see some of that too. So it'll be interesting to watch how this plays out over the next 3 or 4 years, and how much of this land doesn't necessarily change hands as far as ownership goes, but changes hands as far as who's actually farming that. So it'll be interesting to watch that work out. And that being said,
you don't want to get rid of your property. I mean, that's the biggest asset you have right there.
Yeah.
Well, if you can, if you don't owe money on it and you can keep it and not have to worry about it and just collect rent, I mean, you're money ahead, because who knows what the property value will do in 5-10 years, and will it continue to keep going?
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
For me, trying to buy property, I hope it doesn't. But
right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So. Well, Parker, that's probably a good place to stop, man. If folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what's going on at Valley Transportation, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, give me a call at 800-657-4910 or shoot me an email at pjohnson@valleytransinc.com.
Right on, man. And look forward to seeing you guys again down in Nashville. Moving Iron Summit will be coming up here again. Already hard to believe we're planning for November 24, but that's when.
It's going to be November or September?
Yeah, November this year. Yeah, we had.
Okay, give me a little later then.
Had to jump through a few hoops. Didn't like some dates, so I picked November. So I think that'll be. I think it'll be a little better time this year than what we had in the past.
Sure.
See what happens. So.
No, that'll be great.
All right, man. Well, Parker, I appreciate you being the podcast, man. We'll look forward to talking again next month.
All right, appreciate it, Casey. Thank you.
All right, on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast and go to LinkedIn. Go to the video version of this on YouTube channel, which is the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Go to movingironllc.com for everything Moving Iron related. Got some bigger announcements coming out here over the next couple months, so you'll be able to see that there, and also have a new website hopefully here by January, so check that out. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Parker Johnson. Move smart, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard work.